You should see a screen that says the Essential 8. So it says I'm presenting my screen, and there you are. So the people who have your cameras on, will you give me a thumbs up if you can see the page that says Essential 8? There's a thumb. There, I got a virtual thumb. I got a real thumb. There we are. Excellent. Thank y'all. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's talk about the Essential 8. If you've met me ever before, you know that this is real special to me. And the reason is because I am the one that created it. It's not completely mine. I had a lot of help once things got up and running, but several years ago when Dr. Whitbeck first arrived, and so I'm going to kind of start from the beginning, because like I said, some of you are new to us and you've not sat with me in a training before to know the backstory. And so if you've heard this story before, just really let it kind of resonate with you again. I think about, there are lots of stories that we repeat. There are kids who learn Bible stories. There are kids who read the same children's books again and again, because some stories are they're really worth repeating. And I think Essential 8 is a story like that. So this is not a training where you're going to learn about compliance or things that you need to do or a checklist that you need to work on. This training really is a story. And it's a story of what Essential 8 is and why it is important to us in Bryan ISD. All right, so let me take you back a little bit. So I hope you're comfortable, whether you're sitting on your couch, on your back porch, wherever you are, just get comfortable. That's the number one thing. And so I'm going to talk to you for about 30 minutes. Then we're going to take a stretch break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to visit a little bit more. So just know that you hang with me for about half an hour, and then I'm going to give you a stretch break to go fill your coffee up, and then we'll come back. So back in 2017, some of you were here, some of you were not, but Dr. Whitbeck was our new superintendent. She had just come to Bryan ISD, and she decided that she wanted. I got somebody. Let me mute you. Patricia, can you mute yourself? Or Simeon, can you mute her? I don't know. There we go. Excellent. You're good to go. Okay. Because when you're not muted, it makes me echo. And while my voice is awesome, I don't want to hear it twice. So back in 2017, we were at Central Baptist Church. And some of you remember that day. That's that, when we all get together and we have that big hoopla. And for the first time ever in my 28 years of doing public ed, we're not going to have one of those like we used to. But on that day in 2017, Dr. Whitbeck stood up before us at Central Baptist Church, and she told us her story. And she told us a story about how she and her husband had two kiddos. She had a little boy and a little girl, Taylor and Callie. And Taylor was her oldest. And when Taylor was born, he had a disease that was incurable. And it was the kind of disease that you've seen in the movie called David the Bubble Boy. And so while Taylor did not live in a bubble, he had that compromised immune system that just did not allow him to develop and to have the kind of life that kids have. He couldn't run and play and be outside and do things that regular kids get to do. And so the doctors had told Dr. Whitbeck and her husband, that Taylor probably wouldn't have a very long life, but that they could do things along the way to give him the very best life possible. And so she and her husband were raising these two kids, Taylor trying to navigate the disease that he had, and then Callie, she's their youngest one, and they had a great family life. And she tells a story back in 2017 about just the things they did as a family. And so she's a first grade teacher, life is good, things are rocking along, and all of a sudden she gets promoted to be an assistant principal. And then she gets promoted to be a principal. And then it's not long after that they actually ask her to go and open up a brand new school. And so very much like we all opened Sul Ross and SFA not too many years ago, she was asked to do that where she was. And so she went in that August, and she is preparing to open up that school, making sure we have things like desk and toilet paper and the basics that oftentimes new buildings don't have. And she's loving life. And she and her husband have a great family and a great life. She gets a phone call from the police on one of her days right before school starts. And the police tell her that her husband has just been killed in a tragic car accident. And on that day, her life changed drastically. And I remember that day when we were at Central Baptist Church, and she told that part of her story, and you could just feel the quiet settle across that room. How you have this mama of these two kids who her husband's just been killed, and now she has to figure out how to, number one, be a single mom of two kiddos, of which one has a really tough disease, and she has to figure out how we're going to open school. And y'all know, like what we're doing right now, August comes, and it doesn't really matter what's happening around us in our personal lives or in the world. School has to start. We don't stop teaching kids just because stuff happens. And so for her life back then, she realized school has to start. I got to figure out how to get up every day, pull up my bootstraps, and be the mom and be the administrator I need to be. And so she starts living her life as a single mom, as a widow. And so things are rocking along, and she's getting kind of a new norm, like we've done with this whole pandemic. We have our new norms, and she's doing all right. Her career's doing well. Her kids are doing well. Taylor struggles, but they're managing. And so all of a sudden, the doctors, had always told her, Taylor will probably never do certain things. He may not graduate high school. He may not live that long. Well, Taylor had this idea about life, that he grabbed life by the horns every day, and he lived life to the fullest. And not only did he graduate high school, but he decided he was going to go to college. And so here she is, this mom of these 2 kiddos, raising them by herself, and she decides, okay, I'm going to support him. He's going to go to college. And it took him a long time to get through college, but he did it. He had some setbacks on the way, but he did it. And she started really watching his life, and she started journaling. And I don't know if any of you do this, where you write out things that are happening in your day, and you journal, and then you go back and read about some of the trials you've come through and some of the celebrations that you've had. Well, she was doing that during Taylor's years in college. And she realized, as she was journaling and writing, that this kid was like teaching her how to live. He was getting up every day with the best attitude, with the best resolve for just conquering the day, not knowing if he was going to have more tomorrows or not. And he began to teach his mama how to live life. And so he gets through college and he graduates. And he tells his mom, I can't do a lot, but I think I want to be an Uber driver. Now, that was back in the day. This has been about 10 years ago. This is a while back. So Uber wasn't a big thing back then. It was just very, in its new stages, just getting started. And so he started researching how to become an Uber driver, because he said, Mom, I can't really get up and move around a lot, but I could sit in the car, I could drive, and I could talk to people, and I can make them feel good about their day. And what an incredible way for him to live his life. So he's researching how to be an Uber driver. And then all of a sudden, his health takes a turn for the worse, and Taylor dies. And so Dr. Whitbeck, after just years before losing her husband, loses her son in his 20s. And so again, if y'all were there on that day in 2017 with me, you remember how quiet Central Baptist got. Our hearts were just, and even now telling the story again, my heart is just gripped to think, you've lost your husband, you've lost your kiddo. Now, where's the story going? And so she told us, what? The lessons that my son taught me while he was alive are how I live my life today. And then she began to share those lessons with us. And she called them her lessons from Taylor. And they became kind of her guiding principles, her stakes in the sand. That's where she held on to when the wind would blow and life was hard. Those are the things that she grounded herself in. And so we left convocation that day thinking, what? She is not a perfect person, and she doesn't have all the answers. But by golly, she's got a heart. She is a human being, and she wants to take care of people. And I can't think of a better person that I'd want to work for than somebody like that. So after convocation, she came to me and she said, what, Kelly, I have my lessons from Taylor, and they're why I get up every day. They are how I live my life. And she said, we have a mission statement in Bryan ISD, and we got a vision, we got board goals, we got lots of paperwork. She said, but we don't have something like that here. We don't have common beliefs that we all can hang on to, that we can train our new people in, that we can teach our kids about, that they know that when they show up to school, this is how we're going to treat them. She said, I want us to have something like that. And then she said to me, can you create it? And I tell this joke often. When the superintendent asks you a question, I don't care what the question is. The answer is always, yes, ma'am. And so I began working that year to try to figure out what the Essential 8 were going to be. And so I started thinking about all my years in education, that I'd been a high school teacher, I've been a high school principal. I ended up coming to Bryan and moving here when my daughter came and married a Bryan boy. And, this was becoming my home. And I started thinking, what would this look like in Bryan, Texas? What would our lessons be? What would our things be? And I began brainstorming and talking to people. And then I began to think about some experiences that I had had over my years in Bryan. And so I decided I wanted things to be connected to character. I knew I wanted something that I thought, I think it's important that we teach reading. It's important that we teach safety. We teach kids how to add and multiply and manage a bank account and all the things they need to do. But if they don't have character, none of that's going to matter. They might get a job, but they won't be able to keep it. They might get a spouse, they won't be able to keep them. If you don't have character, the other stuff just won't matter. And I began to think about a very special experience I had across about 14 months after I got here. So I'd been working at my job in the district, and I got a phone call. And some of you remember Dr. Wallace. He was our superintendent before, and I got a phone call that said, hey, we need your help. We have a campus who's going to need a new principal, and you used to be a principal a long time ago. Could you go and do your district job and be a principal at the same time and help us out? I said, of course I can. When would you like me to go? And his answer was tomorrow. So in January of 2014, I went to Sam Rayburn Middle School back when it was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I became the principal for about 14 months. I was there just over a year and did both jobs. And in my time there, I got to know the kids and the families of Sam Rayburn on a really deep level. I didn't think I liked middle school kids. Thank you, Ms. Johnson, for saying that. I didn't think I liked middle school. Y'all, I had taught high school, and here I am with 6th graders. But I got there, and those kids made their way into my heart, and that staff, some of whom I still have deep connections with today, just became a part of my family. And when Dr. Whitbeck asked me that year, can you make something? I thought, yes, I can, because I think I know this community. I know these kids. I know these families. I know what's important to them. And the number one thing I've learned, and I can tell you this from my personal life as well, and I'm telling you, this is not the kind of training where you make a list of things. This training it's about a story. And the story of Bryan, Texas is very special. And some of you know this personally, that when people in Bryan end up graduating school or finishing, they don't leave. And if they do leave, they all come back. Because once a Bryan Viking, always a Bryan Viking. And I've learned that in my own family, because when my daughter came here, I moved her here from Dallas to go to college. And she met a Bryan Viking graduate. And she ended up marrying him. And now I have a granddaughter who's about to be 8 years old, going into 2nd grade at Johnson Elementary. And I guess I'll live in the Bryan College Station area for as long as they will, because that Bryan boy ain't going anywhere. Even when it came time to buy a house, they didn't look in College Station because he's a Bryan boy. So I've learned very quickly over my 8 years of living here how special this community is. And it's not the kind of place where people just move in and move out. It's very homegrown and it's very special. So I thought if we could build up the character of our kiddos, then we can actually have a huge effect on the next generation, because they're going to stay here. And when you and I are retired and we're old and we need people making good decisions and taking care of our community, we need the kids that we've raised up in Bryan ISD to have the kind of character that we need to make our community strong. And the only place they're going to get that, y'all, is where they spend 7 or 8 hours of their day. From the moment you pick them up to the moments they're at school to the moment you bring them back, we are the ones that are going to teach it. Their moms and dads are with them for so few hours every day. They get home, they eat, and they go to bed, and they do it again. And we get them for the bulk of their day. So Essential 8 was based on my years at Sam Rayburn and what I learned about our kiddos and our community and why I think character is so important. So I want you to think for just a minute about what you think the definition of character is. All right. Now, I know some of you are using a device where it's going to be real hard for you to put something in the chat window, but some of you can do it. So if you are willing to volunteer, type for me what you think character means. And I don't need some special perfect definition. I don't care about grammar. I don't care about spelling. But what do you think character is if you had to define it? Somebody shoot me a couple of things in the chat window if you've got the ability to do so. What is character? Thanks, Grace. Grace says it's integrity. Fidel says it's how you treat others. Can I get one more? One more volunteer. And Reginald says it's integrity. All right. So y'all think about it. They're talking about the core of who you are. It's the stuff inside of you, how you treat people, how you express yourself, says Sandra, the way you come across. So you know what, guys? People don't care how much you know. They don't care what kind of knowledge you have about things. They care about how you're going to treat them. You know, when you walk into the store and you're at that checkout counter, that lady doesn't care how much money you have in your bank account to pay for your stuff. She cares about how you're going to treat her. How are you going to talk to her? Is her day going to be better because you came by, or is it going to be worse? That's your character. And if we can get our kiddos and our staff in Bryan to understand that, man, we can change this community for the better. So think about it this. Another question for you. If all our kids, when they came to school, we could pick the top personality traits, what would we want them to have? What kind of character would we want them to have inside their little person? What would it be? You don't have to type 3, just tell me one. And if you've already said integrity, tell me what else. What would we want kids to have? Kindness, respect for themselves. Honesty, respect, kindness, honesty, lots of honesty. What else? You guys are rocking this. and having charisma, I like that, having confidence, being thoughtful, love, joy, and hope. Okay, y'all are rocking. Thank y'all so much. Happiness. Okay, that's the stuff we want inside of our kids. But y'all, where does character come from? Are kids born with it? Are kids just born kind? Are kids just born honest? Are they born respectful? Now, are there parts of things inside of us? And I love it. Here come my answers. Cornelia and Grace and Red. It's taught to us, y'all. It comes from parents, from home, from moms and dads. They see it. It's how they're raised. Your answers are spot on. Now, is a little bit of it inside of it? Is a little bit, Kimberly says it's what's been demonstrated toward them. And sometimes character is good and sometimes it's bad. And so are some kids just easier to make them respectful? Heck yeah. Some kids y'all can think about you guys who drive a bus. When those kids walk in, they're the ones who, good morning, Mr. Fidel. Good morning, Miss Sandra. Okay, they're the sweet ones who it just comes natural. Then there's ones that, it's like the face, and you got to kind of get it out of them because they're just a little grumpier than others. So part of their character is a little bit connected to who they are inside. But Maria's right. A lot of it comes from home. And a lot of our kiddos are in homes where parents are working a whole lot of hours. They're working 2 and 3 jobs to keep the lights on. And it doesn't mean they don't care about their kids, but they don't always have time to spend on a kid's character. Even my own granddaughter, who I think I raised my daughter pretty well, but my daughter is busy. And they get home and things are, stuff's got to happen. And does she sit down and teach her character all the time? No, she models it and does the very best that she can. And then we got to rely on the school when my grandbaby is at school for 8 hours a day, that somebody else is building up her character. So I have found a quote when I was working on this for Dr. Whitbeck. And this quote said about Martin Luther King. It said, when Dr. King said that he looked forward to the day when all Americans would be judged solely by the content of their character, he was talking about a person's essential qualities. And when I saw that quote, I thought, that's what I need to do. I need to create what she's asked me to because it's essential. Character is essential. And just like Sandra's saying right there, it also depends on who they're hanging out with. Y'all, they're hanging out with us. And so we're going to become their character builders. We're going to become their nurture. And Cornelia's right. My character affects them. Y'all, when I come in and my day's not going so great, my team could feel it if I let them. But shame on me if my rough morning affects my team. I'm going to have to figure out how to put that to the side and make sure that everything I do makes their day as good as possible. Same way when you walk in and you go to check out your keys to get your bus and go, whoever interacts with you first, they're going to set the tone of your day. And then you get on that bus and you're going to talk to those kiddos, you're going to set the tone of their day. And then they're going to walk into math class first period and they're going to set the tone of that teacher's day. It's just like this domino. Character is essential. It is essential to whether our day goes the way we want to or not. So I want us to take just a real quick stretch break, and then I'm going to teach you about why I came up with the 8 pillars that I did. So we're going to stay right on time. It's 9:12. Let's take a 5-minute break. So 9:17, I start talking. So take you a break, fill up your coffee, go to the restroom. I'll see you in 5 minutes. This is your 30-second warning if you can hear my voice. All right, we're back. Hopefully you filled your coffee, took a restroom break, and we're going to keep going. Excellent. All right, we're back. So then why the 8 pillars? I've introduced this to a lot of you already. You probably have some of these signs hanging in the transportation building, maybe even on your school bus. But why the 8 that we came up with? So I got to tell you, when I first began brainstorming what I was going to create that was going to be our essential character, I had a list of 21 things that I wanted us to teach kids. That list was big. And I thought, you know what? 21 might be a little bit excessive. So we got rid of the 21. I started paring it down, and I finally got down to about 12. And I still couldn't figure out which ones I wanted to give up. And so I thought, you know what? I knew I wanted it to be the number 8 because I thought E and E, essential, 8. So how could I figure out which 8 were the most important of the 12 that I came up with? And I started thinking about my years at Sam Rayburn. So I want to tell you another part of a story that it's not so much all the stuff that happened in the middle, but it really will help you understand why I came to the point that I came to. So I had this list of 12 words, these 12 character traits, some of the things you said, honesty and integrity and respect, and all those words are so important. And I had to figure out how to cut down a few of them. And so I want to tell you what happened to me when I was at Sam Rayburn. When I got to Sam Rayburn, there were 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. That's back when it was still middle school. And there were 800 of them. And they needed some help from me, this new principal, to get some procedures in place. I needed kids out of the hall and into the class so learning can happen. That was kind of my charge that I was given. And I thought, you know what, I'll go to Sam Rayburn, I'll keep doing my district job, and I'll put some procedures in place. But, you know, middle school is not really my jam. I'm not going to be here for very long. I'm temporary. I'm going to get some things in good place, and then we're going to hire a new principal, and I'll go back to my district job. While I was doing that, like I said in the very beginning, those kids got into my heart. And I realized that even though middle school is a little bit scary and a little bit different. Hey, Simeon, can you mute, I think it's Ayamosa, or Miss Ayamosa, can you mute yourself? See if you can press your mute. There you go, thank you. Oh, and now Joyce. Joyce Proctor, can you mute yourself? Otherwise, there's 2 of me talking. It's not a fun echo. There you go. Awesome. Okay, so let's keep going. So while I was at Sam Rayburn, like I said, I met these kids. They got into my heart, and there were some pretty special ones. And I had some kids that I met the time that I was there that had some academic struggles. I had kids that were in the middle school and could hardly read. And I thought, you know what? How did this happen? How did they end up in middle school and they can't read? They've already been retained. A lot of them had already done one of their grade levels twice. And I thought, oh, these must be kids who must move around a lot. They probably came from College Station and Somerville and Hearn, and they just got to us. And I started doing some research on a lot of these kiddos. There's over 50 of them who were kind of in this academic dark spot. And I realized they hadn't come from Hearn. They hadn't come from College Station. They hadn't come from anywhere except Bryan, Texas. They had all been Irish since the beginning. Kiddos who we'd had since pre-K had wound up at middle school and could not read. And I thought, okay, we got to do something drastic. I can't send these kids to high school and they don't know how to read. And so I began working with my team. There was about 50 or so kids. And they kind of became our kids on our radar that I thought, you know what, we have to get them, number one, to trust us. We have to get them to find and see that school has relevance for them, that school is a place that they are safe, where people care about them. And if they can believe that, we might have a chance of teaching them how to read. We might have a chance of helping their math skills grow. And so we started working on this program. And when I say it was like a mentoring program, I don't mean mentoring like somebody shows up once a week and brings lunch. I'm talking every day. We were all over these kids. Like, we were checking on them, making sure they were okay. What had happened to them the night before when they came to school? What can we do to help? What do they need? Are they clean? Do they have basic supplies to be okay? I mean, there were some big needs that we discovered. Do they need a ride because they missed the bus and they didn't have a way to get here? They had no bus, whatever it was. One of those kids was an 8th grader. I met him in the 7th grade, and then he went into the 8th grade in my time there. And whenever I met him, he was one of those kids who just kind of blended into the walls. He wasn't one who was always in trouble. He wasn't one that everybody just noticed. He just kind of stayed in the background, and he liked it that way. And what I learned about him during that time is by staying in the background, because he wasn't ever really in trouble, people kept just kind of passing him to the next grade. He didn't really learn much, didn't really do a lot, but just passing him on. And I thought, there's something going on. There's got to be something else. This kid was 15 years old in the 8th grade. He wanted to play basketball so badly, but he couldn't pass any classes. And his reading level in the 8th grade was a 3rd grade level. And he'd been ours since pre-K at Ben Milam. And while we started working on all 50 of these kids, this one kid, he just kind of became my focus. And I got him into teachers' classrooms who I knew would take good care of him. And they began to love him and to show him that he was valued. And somewhere along the line, he started to trust us. And during that time, it took a long time to get his academics up, and because his reading level was super low. But across time, we began to see progress to the point that he got to play basketball. But during that time, I also found out that he was homeless, and that he and his brother had moved out from the house where they'd been with their mother because they had no electricity, had been cut off, and they just kind of thought they'd figure out things on their own. And so they were living on friends' couches, living with cousins, kind of moving here and there, and they didn't really have a place to land a lot of nights. They show up to school with dirty clothes in their backpack so we could help get them washed. And all along the way, this kid just kept being the face again and again, like, there's a reason that I'm here. So without telling you all the details that happened in the months in the middle of this, by the end of this young man's 8th grade year, he and I were at the courthouse filing paperwork for me to become his legal guardian. And so while he finished 8th grade through his high school years, Jacob became my kiddo. And my job was to, number one, teach him that there were people that he could trust, that would take care of him, that would give him what he needed to be successful, and that who could help him learn so that no matter what he wanted to do once he finished high school, he would have a better chance of having success because he would know how to read. And so through the years that I had him in my home as my kid and as his legal guardian, I started thinking a lot about character. And what did I need? I needed him to know how to read, y'all. He had to know how to read. But I needed him to know how to have, like the words you said, how to have integrity, how to treat people with kindness, how to be honest and tell the truth no matter what you've done. And so I began to work with him, because when you get a kid at the age of 15, you haven't had 15 years already to teach them all the things that you taught your little bitty kids when you first had them. And so I had to work fast. And so those essential characteristics I came up with, that's where my essential 8. That's where my essential 8 came from. And I started, when Dr. Webbeck asked me, okay, Kelly, can you give us something like what I have with my Taylor? I thought, you know what, I can give you something like what I did with Jacob. And I'm not telling you our life was perfect, and I'm not telling you our life was easy. But every day was an investment of trying to help him have the character he needed to be successful and to learn how to read. Now, does he read at the highest level possible today? No, he does not. But by the time he got to 9th grade, he had already gained up to a 7th grade reading level. So in 1 year, we gained over 4 years. And I'll tell you, he bucked the system, and he didn't like it, and he didn't want to do schoolwork when we got to the house, and he didn't want to read those little, what he called the baby books. But I found every single book I could find on the subject of basketball at every possible reading level, and that's how we did it. And little by little, he learned how to read. I found out that he had a learning disability. He was highly dyslexic. And so we had all these strategies we started teaching him, his teachers and I, on how to read even though you're dyslexic, because it's possible. So when she asked me about creating something for the school district, that's where Essential 8 came from. And so we came up with these 8 words, all because of my experience in my year at Sam Rayburn, and especially my experience with Jacob. And so I'm going to share with you what our words are, and they're going to match some of the words that you said on your list. And some of them are a little different, but these are the ones in Bryan ISD that we promise this is how we're going to treat each other. This is how we're going to treat our kids. And then ideally, as they learn it from us, one of you said in your definition, how I act influences them. As we act this way with these 8 characteristics, they're eventually going to learn them as well. So let me share with you what they are. First one is kindness. It's pointing to the little guy's heart. A couple of the words are about your heart. How do you feel? How do you treat people with kindness? The second one's pointing to his brain. So how do you think? What do you believe about things? And that word is tolerance. The third one is pointing to his heart as well. So kindness is part of his heart. The other part of his heart is gratitude, having a spirit of gratitude. The fourth one's pointing to his hands, and that's having a spirit and a character of philanthropy. And I'm going to explain that one to you in just a minute, because I know that's a really odd word. You're thinking, okay, what? Why did you pick that one? I'm going to tell you. Then you look down where his feet are. Your feet, that's what you stand for. That's your work ethic. The next one's pointing to his glasses, your outlook on the world. How do you see things? And that's pointing to optimism. And then this one's my favorite because it points to your gut, to your core, to the soul of who you are on the inside. And that one is courage. And then the last one is that little pillar that he's standing on. And that one is leadership. And if we can get kids in Bryan ISD to have those 8 character traits inside of them, they will be honest. They will have respect. They will have integrity, because those are words all associated with these things that we're trying to teach our kids. So the other part of this that's very important is you got to know what the definitions are. So let me share with you how we teach kids in Bryan ISD from pre-K to grade 12 what these words mean. The number one word, kindness, means being friendly, considerate, and caring. And let me tell y'all what I've just recently done. So, I'm in charge of the Essential 8. My team and the teachers that I brought together, we wrote all the lessons that the kids get every single week. But I knew I needed some new lessons for this new pandemic life that we're all living. So I actually came to y'all's world one day last week. And I had my phone camera, and it's not the greatest quality recording, but it's me and it's real. And I have a lesson that all the kids are going to watch on that first day of school. Every grade level is going to watch it. And it's about kindness. And I'm standing in front of a school bus and I'm recording myself. And I am teaching kids that if we are truly going to embody and live out kindness, the second word in there about being considerate means that before they get on your school bus, they're going to put on their mask. And I actually put my mask on and I talk about the definition of kindness. And I tell them, guys, I don't like this. It's hot on my face. It makes my glasses fog up. It's not always comfortable. But if I commit to being kind, which means that I consider other people more important than me, I'm going to put on my mask every single day. Before I walk in this office, I'm going to put on my mask. When I leave my office to go to the bathroom, I'm going to put on my mask. And I tell those kids, and they're going to have a lesson that first day of school that the whole school district is going to watch, that before they get on your bus, they're going to put on their mask. So you don't have to ask them. And I want you, once you have that video, I want you to remind, hey, y'all remember that lady? What did she tell you? Put your mask on. Kindness means I care about other people. And so I'm going to try to teach our kids that even in the midst of a pandemic, we can still live out the Essential 8. The second word is tolerance. And what tolerance means in Bryan ISD is that I desire to understand and I desire to accept everybody. I don't need to totally believe what you believe. I don't need to go to your church. You don't need to go to mine. I don't need to vote for who you vote for. You don't need to vote for who I vote for. I don't care about those things. But I desire to understand you. Like, just talk me through it. Help me know you. Why do you think this way? Why do you like that thing? Or why do you believe this? I just want to be able to work with everybody, and I want my kids to feel the same way. I don't want to hear this, Miss, I can't work with her. I've been in education 28 years. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. You put kids in a group, Miss, are you on the bus? I guarantee you've heard it. Miss, I can't sit by her. My mama said I can't sit by her. Well, you know what? If I got tolerance, I can sit by anybody. Any color, any size, any shape, any gender, any belief system. I don't care what street they live on. I don't care where they come from. I want to try to accept everybody. That is the only way that mankind can finally get to the point where we can all get along, is having tolerance. The third one is gratitude. The definition of gratitude is having a spirit where you are thankful and appreciative. I want kids to appreciate what we do for them. And I don't just mean say thank you. I want them to appreciate it. I want them to appreciate everything we do on a daily basis so that they in turn have a spirit of gratitude. Philanthropy, making an active effort to make things better for other people. You don't have to have money in your bank account to have philanthropy. But if you show up every day to make things better for everybody in your world, and then they do the same, it's like that old movie we watched many years ago, Pay It Forward. I just want to make things better for you. And I need to trust that when my grandbaby walks in Johnson Elementary, when she's greeted by that receptionist is going to make her day better. And then when she gets to that second grade classroom, they're going to do it. When she sees Miss Sheila, the custodian in the hallway cleaning, Miss Sheila's going to make her day better too. So that then my grandbaby can do the same thing for the kids in her class. She can act the right way and make things better for her teacher. And so philanthropy is that. I just want everybody paying it forward, making things better for other people. Work ethic, having a determination to work hard. I want kids who try. I want them to try. They may not always succeed, but I want them to try and be determined. Optimism, having a positive attitude and expecting the best possible outcomes. Sometimes our kids struggle and they worry, and even our little bitties worry, but I need them to expect the best possible outcomes, to believe I can do this. These teachers, this staff, that principal, that bus driver, that cafeteria, whoever, they care about me. They care that I show up. I'm going to try, and I'm going to expect good things. Courage. I told you that's my favorite. It says having the mind and the heart to persevere. That means to keep on trying in spite of difficulties, opposition, or fear. And when these kids come back from this pandemic, y'all, we haven't seen them since March the 6th. We're going to have a lot of difficulties to overcome. They haven't had structure. They haven't had somebody checking on them. They haven't had somebody making their lunch, feeding it to them at the same time every day, giving them a bathroom break, ringing a bell, telling them it's time to go. They haven't had structure. Even though moms and dads are great, y'all, there's no better structure than what school gives them. And so we're going to have courage because our kids are going to be coming in with some difficulties. And they're going to probably rebel against the structure for a little while because they haven't had it for so long. But we're going to keep on persisting. We're going to have a mind and a heart that keep everybody together, and we're going to try. And then finally, the best word of the whole training, the definition of leadership, guiding, leading, and here's my word, serving others. We are all servants. I don't care what your job description is and what the badge says that you hang around your neck. You are in a job of service because you work in public education. And even though we've kind of been off for a little while at home, y'all, we're essential. We are as essential as the people in the hospital and as the police who drive down the street. People who work in public education like us, we're essential. We are public servants. And our job is to figure out how do we serve these kiddos and these parents and these families to the very best of our ability. All right. So I want to show you something. I'm going to skip this because I want to go to this one. Okay. I want to tell you about kiddos coming in. Some of them are going to struggle. Some of them are going to have attitudes. If you were working in public schools back in the 20s and 30s, you would have had kids coming in from the Great Depression. Kids who had been without a lot of things, without milk, without meat, y'all. And I don't just mean without toilet paper like we've been experiencing. I mean kids who truly have been without because they lived in the 20s and 30s when things got bad. And so the people in those schools had to try to figure out, how do I interact with kids when they are used to things running out? How do I make kids trust me when they're always worried? They don't want to share because things are always running out. Well, think about this. What if you were in public schools teaching and working in this job we have now in the 50s and 60s? What if you were teaching kids who came to school under Jim Crow laws? They're going to come to school back in those days thinking that things aren't fair. It ain't separate but equal. It's not equal. It's just separate. Things aren't fair. And so teachers back in the 50s and 60s who taught during segregation had to try to teach kids that, you know what, even though the world has this stuff happening, when you come in my classroom, I'm going to treat you with equity. Things are going to be fair. They are, no matter what's happening in the world. So those are called mental models. It means that what's happening in the world changes how we act. And so let me give you one example because this one's real. And this one's going to touch it's going to prick your heart and it's going to make you kind of pause for a minute. But y'all, this is what our community in our world in the United States of America is living right now. And the entire globe is watching us as we experience this. And so you're going to get kiddos who are coming to school who identify with this man's face. They don't know him any more than you and I know him. But all of a sudden, they identify with a story that's been told on social media and on the news, and they all of a sudden have an idea of who our police are and who they are not. They have an idea about people of authority and about whether or not they're going to be treated the right way or not, whether they're going to be judged by the color of their skin or not, or from the street that they live on or the community that they come from. And so we already had kids who see a very big difference in Bryan and College Station. And Bryan kiddos always get this idea in their head that College Station thinks they're better than us. But sometimes I think our Bryan kids think that they're not as good. So there's something about the way that our kids' minds work that we got to change that. And I can't change what happened in our world a couple months ago. And I can't change what's still going on in some of our cities across the nation. But the one thing we can work to do is we can change our kids' attitude about trust. And they may not trust certain parts of our world, but they can trust us. So all the things, y'all, some of you are my age, you've lived through some of these things. You've lived through integration, you lived through segregation, you know what it's like to come to school and try to trust people. And you don't just trust them because they say that you can. You trust them because their actions match what they say. And so we're going to have kids come into school in August of 2020 who've just lived through this summer. And we're going to have to figure out how to get them to trust us. And the number one way we're going to do that is this is our adult right here. You want to change kids' version of trust? You live these things out every day. You treat those kids with kindness. You treat them with tolerance. And I don't mean tolerate them. I mean you treat them with tolerance. You desire to accept them. You be grateful for them. Y'all, if we didn't have kids, none of us would have a paycheck. Okay? They're our reason for existing. That's why we're in service to them. I need you to treat them with courage. I need you to have a strong work ethic. I need you to show up every day and make an active effort to make things better for them. That's how we're going to change the idea they have in their head that's been planted by what's happened in our nation this summer. We got to live this out. So how are we going to do that? Well, every month we focus on one. I'm going to kick it off next week when kids come to school, and I'm going to teach them about kindness. I'm telling them, put that mask on. You need to be kind. You need to be considerate. You put that mask on, and then you treat people with kindness everywhere you go. And every single month we focus on these. And just like you do on the bus, we do it in the classrooms. We're all united from pre-K to grade 12. We're all saying the same thing, and that's what Essential 8 allows us to do. So I want you to hear from a couple kiddos. And I went to MC Harris right when I was planning all this a couple years ago. And I interviewed 23 kids. I just said, hey guys, I went and stood before all of them. I'm gonna train the whole district. I'm gonna teach teachers and principals and bus drivers and maintenance workers about being kind. Do you have any messages for them? And man, 23 kids volunteered. I had more video than I could shake a stick at. But I want to show you two videos that I think are the most profound, the most important messages that those kids gave me that day at MC Harris. And those kids didn't know what Essential 8 was because they were about to graduate. They never got to learn it. But what they said to me this day made me realize not only do they know what Essential 8 is, they want to have a staff that lives it out.
Taylor Ross is here. So Taylor, tell me what advice you have for teachers on how to work better with our kids in Bryan Stacy.
I just feel like you should make it harder on them. I feel that just be understanding because you never know, but we have to go through just like we don't know what you guys have to go through. So it's like you guys should just kind of be a little bit more open-minded and I just be so hard on us. Like just maybe take the time and just figure out what's wrong with us or what's going on. If you see a difference in how we're acting or you see that we're down, then like pull us aside and ask us what's going on because there are things that we go through at home and we might not want to come talk to you guys about it or we might just scared to open up or we might not know if you guys are really you guys really care. So just showing like that you care and that that you're willing to help or make the situation better. Show us that we do have support from you guys or that you guys do take your job seriously, that you really do love and care about your career, that it's not just you're getting paid for this, you're just coming to do this. Like,
It really is about the kids.
it's really like the kids.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Okay, so what she said is, guys, we're not going to tell you when we're having a bad day. Could you please just check on us? Could you look us in the eye and make sure we're okay? Don't just show up to get a paycheck. Act like you care about us. And then eventually, after you act like you care about them for a while, it becomes real. That's what Taylor said that day. And when she said that, I thought, you know what? She hit the nail on the head. I need people who show up every day and treat their kids with kindness. They want us to do that. They want us to be compassionate. They want us to care about them. And y'all, they're not always going to act like it. But I'm telling you, that's what they want. Taylor said it. I believe it. They want us to care about them. But then you know what? They're going to mess up. Just like your own kids, they're going to mess up. They're going to disappoint us. They're going to choose wrong. They're going to make bad decisions. They're going to lose homework. They're going to get in a fight. They're going to do all kinds of nonsense because they're children. But I have another kid I want you to hear because his message tells us what should happen when those things happen to us.
Okay, so this is Ryterius Wallace, and he is also about to be another graduate of MC Harris. So Ryterius, tell me about a situation maybe you've encountered that hasn't been the most positive in your time in school.
Well, I was in a teacher class. Like kind of was loud, I'm a loud person.
Okay.
So she had to tell me to be quiet a few times, and I sit it down. And then one day I came in and I asked her to help me with my work, but she ignored me. So I just stopped trying. I kept asking and asking and asking, but she wouldn't help me. So I just clicked it. I stopped trying.
Okay, so her not helping you actually affected your academics that day.
Yes.
Okay.
It did.
So then if you could talk to that teacher today and tell her about that moment, what would you tell her to do differently? Or what would you ask her to do differently?
I would ask her to I don't know. See, I'm just
No, you're fine. So let's try it this way. If you were in that situation again, and you're asking that teacher for help, knowing that she had to get on to you in the past, and so maybe she already thinks, oh my God, is that Wallace getting so loud? How would you want her to act with you going forward? How would you want her to be different?
we want to first start with her.
So just because you messed up a few days later and you're allowed, you need a fresh start every day. Okay.
Y'all, I couldn't have paid that kid for a better answer. There are kids who are going to mess up. They're going to disappoint us. They're going to choose wrong. And then the next day you're going to see them again. And just like Ryteria said, we need to be able to be a staff who gives them a second chance. And the number one word that I talk about in my own personal life and how I conduct myself in Bryan ISD is we got to live with grace. Oh, Cornelia just said they all have stories. You never know what their story is, just like they don't know what your story is. But if we extend grace to everybody, we can actually begin to get them to trust us. And we can give them a second chance to try again, because y'all, every day the sun comes up, we get a chance to do better. The sun comes up, let's try again. They deserve the same chance, because the one day that Ryterius decided, I'm going to do some work today. And y'all, I bet he gave that lady 3 shades ahead the whole school year. I guarantee you he did. He said himself, I'm a loud person. And then he just grins. But think about it. The one day he decided to work, she was done. And what did that tell him? Your effort doesn't matter. You're too late. Y'all, as long as there's breath left in us and the doors of Bryan ISD open up, Grace is exactly right. Every day is a new day, and we try again. We try to do better. So when we start to treat kids with kindness and we give them grace and we try to accept them, they will be kids who begin to exhibit those things as well. So let me tell you one more thing, and then I'm going to finish up. I got one more tiny little story to share with you. Y'all know better than anybody, because you see kids sometimes at their very worst, because you see them first thing in the morning. They don't drink coffee, but you kind of get them before they've had coffee because they hadn't had breakfast yet. You got to get them to the schoolhouse so they can eat. So you get all kinds of attitudes, I'm sure, first thing in the morning. But they need adults who are going to create relationships with them. They need it. So let me tell you one quick story about sometimes our relationships take a long time. And some of you have been in this district for a while, and I appreciate your service, because you understand that sometimes it takes years to finally connect with one kid. And we all are just part of the chain. I see heads nodding, and you're remembering those faces. And Rhonda's right. You need to act like they're your kids. Because somewhere your grandbabies and your own kids are in school, and somebody I hope is doing the same thing for them. So let me tell you a story. And I got to Sam Rayburn. Not only did I meet Jacob, who found his way into my heart, but I met a young lady named Aaliyah. And Aaliyah was, she was 4'10" and a ball of dynamite. But when I first met Aaliyah, she wasn't my student at Sam Rayburn. She was actually in jail, because she had been part of that group of kids who had mobbed that convenience store back in 2014 on Highway 21, and she got locked up for it. And it was an awful, awful thing that she did. But then when she arrived at Sam Rayburn, I thought, you know what? This kid needs a chance. She's back. She's done. She served her time. She's done her consequence. She needs a new start. And so she and I, somehow, if there was ever a kid that connected to my heart more than Jacob, it would be this one. And I didn't take her home because she didn't need me to take her home, because she had a mama that was amazing. But that mama was working all the time, working as a night shift manager lady at Whataburger, and she was gone a lot. So Leah had a lot of time on her hands to make wrong decisions. And so what would happen was she'd push the envelope when she got back to Rayburn, and I'd push it right back, and then I'd love her. And then she'd push, and I'd push right back, and she finally realized, okay, this lady's not going to give up. She's going to make me follow the rules, and then she's going to love me as well. And through our time at Sam Rayburn together, she and I just connected. And then I had to send her to Rudder, and so she got to Rudder, and she was doing okay her freshman year. The teachers knew that if she had any issues, they would call, because y'all know Rayburn and Rudder are so close. I'd drive over, I'd get on the phone with them, like, Aaliyah, I need you to breathe. I need you to chill out. I need you to give these people a chance. And over time, she did all right freshman year. She got to her sophomore year, and she decided she was so big, she didn't need any help from any of the rest of us. And she started trying to make decisions on her own, and all those decisions were wrong. And she didn't care what I had to say, and she didn't want to hear anything left that I wanted to teach her. She was rebelling against her mama, against her granny, against all the people in her life, to the point that it was awful every day that she went to school. She was either getting suspended, kicked out, sent to truancy court, you name it, it was happening. Every bad thing that could happen to a kid, and she wasn't learning anything. Well, finally, she got in front of the judge enough times that he had it. And so she should have been a junior at that point, but she had about a year of just doing her own thing, and it was bad. And it broke my heart, but she wasn't ready for help anymore. And that judge said to her that year, you know what? I'm done with you. You are now out of Bryan ISD. Go get your GED. I'm court ordering you out of school. And I thought, oh my God, you can't kick a kid out of school, can you? Can you do that? Don't kids have to go to school? Well, sure enough, I found out the judge can. So she goes on her way. And I'm thinking, all this time, all this work, it's all gone. But I knew deep down in my heart that someday, maybe she'd start remembering the things that she had learned, both from her mama, from her granny, from all of us who cared about her and loved her. And so sure enough, I get a phone call not long after that day with the judge. And it's this little voice that says, Miss Kelly, I need your help. I need to get back to school. And I'm like, sister, yes, you do. Let's make it happen. Let's go get that GED. I'll put you in the course myself. We'll study. We'll do whatever. And she's like, I don't want a GED. I want to go to MC Harris and I want to get a diploma. And I said, sugar, I appreciate that, but the judge has already ruled, and that's kind of the end of the rope. I mean, that's the end. You don't go beyond the judge. And she said, but couldn't you talk to him? And I remember that day like it was yesterday, thinking, what kind of power does this girl think I have? So you know what? I thought, sure, I'll try. I did not think that this judge was going to listen to me, but I made a phone call. I got his assistant, and I said, this is who I am. Could you have him call me? I'd like to see if I could get an appearance before him. I have a student I want to talk about. So sure enough, the judge calls me back. And as I'm talking, he says, no, tell me again, what do you do in Bryan ISD? Because he assumed I was a teacher. I told him what my job is. And he said, like, you're a district administrator, which that's not anything special. But he said, I've never had anybody at the district level ever call on behalf of a kid before. He said, I've had coaches, football coaches, I've had teachers, I've had some principals along the way. He said, I've never had a district person call about a kid. So if you're willing to support her and stand by her, I'll let her back in school. I was sitting in this office where I am right now with the phone in my hand, and I thought, what just happened? I don't need to come to court. I don't need to sign. He's like, no, I'm going to trust you. He said, I'm telling you, I've never had a district person do this before. You going to help her? We're going to put her back in school. So I called Michael Watts, who was the principal at NC Harris. I said, you're not going to believe what just happened. Get me a spot because Aaliyah's coming. So I call her, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I got more power than I thought. So we get that girl in school, and that staff starts to love on her. There are some special teachers at MC Harris because they know that by the time the kids get there, they need more love than anybody. They're at the end of their educational line, and they need grace, they need love, and they need accountability. And so here goes Aaliyah. She is rocking along. Those teachers are loving her. I'm picking her up some days. They're picking her up. Her mom is pushing her out the door. It's like a village. We are working. I'm like, okay, we're on year 5 with this kid. I had her back in the 8th grade, and here we are. We're back, but we're going to get her through, and she's going to graduate. And then she gets pregnant. And I thought, oh my gosh, we have gone through every barrier, and now we got another one. She said to me that day, I'll never forget, this was in the fall, Miss Kelly, I got this. I'm too close now. I will not stop. And sure enough, she took all her EOCs that December, and she passed them. And then she needed just a few more credits, and she's all a 4'10" with that little belly in front of her, getting bigger and bigger, ready to have a baby, and she finishes her credits. And so in March of 2018, Aaliyah finished her credits and gave birth to a beautiful baby girl all in the same month. And all she had to wait on was graduation in May. So she was hanging out at her granny's house. That's where she was staying and during the day, and they were helping her get that baby, whatever she needed. And then all of a sudden we went to graduation, and she's in purple with those balloons holding that baby, and it's beautiful. And I thought, we did it. 5 years in with this kid, and we had some rough roads, but we did it. But little did I know, Aaliyah's story was not finished, because she said to me, Miss Kelly, I need your help with one more thing. I need a job. And she'd worked at Walmart before, so I asked. I said, okay, like Walmart, what are you thinking? What do you want to do? And she said, y'all, I don't make stuff up because my life is crazy enough. I don't need to make up fiction. She said, I want a job in Bryan ISD. And I stood there at the Performing Arts Center. She's in purple balloons. And I said, you want a what? She said, I want a job in Bryan ISD. I said, what kind of job do you want? She's like, well, when I was in kindergarten, I was bad. And y'all, I now know on good authority from her principal, from Kim Carver. Yes, she was bad. She said, I got kicked out of kindergarten all the time. I want to be the person that when the kid gets kicked out, I can take them somewhere, teach them how to be good, and then help them go back to kindergarten with their teacher so they can learn how to read. And I thought, okay, we don't have a job like that, Aaliyah, but wow, if we did, what an amazing thing. And I said, Aaliyah, let's celebrate tonight. It's graduation. You got to have a resume to get a job. You got to make an application. Let's do all this later. Let's focus on tonight. She's like, yes, ma'am. So we had our celebration. She goes on, they go out and do their thing as a family. And it's not a week later, she calls me and she says, I'm ready to make a resume. And I thought, oh my Lord, she's serious. But she thinks I'm the lady that made the judge change his mind. She thinks I'm going to get her a job for a job that doesn't exist. So I go pick her up and we go to Starbucks where they have some Wi-Fi and we make a resume. I teach her how to do it and she's describing what she thinks she can do. And she's like, I want to help these kindergarten kids. This is what I want to do. And she's thinking, I want to pay it back. So that was the summer that I started doing Essential 8 training. And I started doing Essential 8 training and I'm telling the story of Aaliyah about how, you know what, we got her through, she got a diploma. And now I'm standing on the stage at Rudder High School. And I said to these people that day, and now she wants a job in Bryan ISD. And I just kind of laughed. And I said, you know what? You never know. I said, but we got Aaliyah through. And our relationships, I think, are what helped this girl stay connected to us. And I break that day and we send everybody out. And when I leave, I've got principals standing there waiting for me, which was normal. They always need something. And I thought they just needed, something about my job. And the first principal who's standing there is Miss Collins, the principal at Neal Elementary. And she said, Kelly, I don't have a job like that, but I'll create one. She said, I will pull together some of my federal money because we get federal and state money. She said, I'll pull it together. I'll create a job and I'll hire Aaliyah if you think this is the right spot. And I said, what? And right behind her was Miss Boggin from Kim Carver. And she said, Kelly, if Miss Collins can't do it, I'll find the money. I'll pull together from different budgets. I'll give her a job. Okay, I got 2 jobs and I'm just standing up there telling the story. And behind those 2 ladies was Lane Bubin, principal of Bryan High School. And he said, Kelly, I hear what the ladies have said. And I know Aaliyah wants to do kindergarten. He said, but if we can't figure that out, I'll hire her in life skills. She can help with some of my really tough kiddos who need help. My kids in wheelchairs, my kids who need extra assistance. I'll hire her at Bryan High School. Y'all, I stand on the stage and in one day I got 3 jobs for this kid. So I call her up and I said, Aaliyah, let's put in the application because I think we can make this happen. So y'all know in public school, nothing happens fast. So it takes us weeks. We get all the paperwork, everything processed, all the approvals, going on and on and on and on. And finally, it comes down to the day where she gets an email from Tracy Coleman Hilton, as many of you have, that says, hey, you want a job? Go get some fingerprints. So we go to Identigo on a Friday afternoon at 5:40 was our appointment. And we make the appointment. She gets our fingertips. We pay our money. And then we wait. And on Tuesday morning, the following week, it was like early August, because we've gone through the whole summer waiting. Aaliyah gets an email that says, I'd like to offer you a contract with Bryan ISD to work as an instructional aide in kindergarten at Neal Elementary. And the very next day on a Wednesday, she shows up at HR and has her name badge made. And you can see her face right there. Aaliyah Reed, instructional aide at Neal Elementary for Bryan ISD. A kid who in the 8th grade was sent to jail for a horrific act. A kid who in her sophomore year was kicked out of school and court ordered to get a GED. But she kept pushing and saying, that's not my story. The story doesn't end. So I tell you the story of Aaliyah, not to say that I did anything special or the judge or the teachers at MC Harris or whatever. I tell you that story because some of these kids, y'all, it takes a long time. Some of them, you're going to connect with them on day one. They're going to love on you. They're going to hug your neck every time you see them. And some of them, you're just one link in their chain. And so Essential 8, what it does for us is it helps us create stories with kids. When we are kind to kids, all of a sudden they start trusting us. They give us a little bit of their story. They allow us to help them. We get to be a part of their stories. And for some of them, it's going to happen quick. You're going to get there and they're going to be yours from the jump. And some of them, y'all, that picture, I was 6 years in with her. 6 years. And there were times, and she didn't act so sweet, and she didn't act so kind. But when she started working at Neal Elementary, and I watched her with those kids, she sponsored the step club. She did choir. That staff loved her. And she got to give back to a community that is hers. That's why Essential 8 works, because that's what Bryan, Texas is. It's a community that wants to take care of itself. So when we raise up kids who we treat kindly, they're going to become kids who do eventually the same. So I share that with you. I tell you that, this is not a typical training. You're not going to learn a lot of lists, and I appreciate all your precious comments. It's not about compliance. This is not about your to-dos. I just need you to be a part of these kids' stories. And if you will do that, even in the midst of a pandemic, even in the midst of what happened with the Floyd story earlier in the summer, no matter what's happened in our world, we can change kids' lives, and I believe that. So I thank you for your attention. I thank you for all your sweet comments. That's all I got for you. Simeon, you want to come in and tell them what to do to dismiss and get ready to go?
Thank you so much, Kelly.